On the surface, she stands before you, soft, tender, speaking of love, of peace, of morality. But beneath, something older stirs, something wild, unchained, hungry, the shadow. It does not bow to words or to ideals or even to love, it bows only to power. Jung wrote of the feminine soul, and what he saw was not a garden of flowers, not a place of safety or peace. He saw a battlefield, a wasteland where gods clashed with shadows, where silence cut sharper than steel, and every smile was only a mask, a painted veil concealing the war raging beneath. History bears witness to her unconscious truth. For centuries, when a tribe fell in battle, the women did not flee. They adapted. They bound themselves to the conquerors, bore their children, and carried on. The feminine instinct is not chained to morality, it is chained to strength. She may call you toxic, she may cry dangerous, but these words belong to her persona, the mask society taught her to wear. In the unconscious, another drama plays out. The shadow yearns to be claimed by the man whose presence is heavier than her chaos, whose silence drowns her noise. Her conscious self recoils, but her unconscious bends. This is the inner war. On one side, there is a part of her called the ID, which is the primal furnace named by Freud, which is known as the raw archetypal fire. On the other side, she has a part of her called the superego, which is formed by rules, shame, voices of the tribe, the mother's scolding. Between them both, there is her fragile ego, torn not by whim but by eternal opposites, which are creation and destruction, surrender and control. That is why she burns hot, then freezes without warning. Why she devours you with hunger, then wounds you with silence. It is not cruelty. It is not strategy. It is the eternal rhythm of her unconscious, the dance of shadow and persona tearing her in two. For the feminine soul, love has never been safety. Love has always been power, not by choice, but by archetype. Most men fail to see this. They believe her silence is mystery, her tests affection, her confusion innocence. They never grasp the truth, Jung whispered. She is not merely herself, she is possessed by something deeper, something collective. She does not consciously crave danger, but the shadow, untouched by morals, asks only one question: can he contain me? So when she withdraws, when her distance cuts you open, it is not rejection, it is survival. You are not battling her, you are wrestling her ghosts, her archetypes, the collective shadows etched into her lineage, the empty cradle of her childhood, the ancient wound of the feminine across centuries. Her silence is not an insult, it is a fortress. A citadel the unconscious built to shield her from the man who stirs the very fire she swore never to awaken. She draws you in with her eyes, her laughter, her body language, a magnet disguised as innocence. And just when you reach for her, she recoils. She teases, she withholds, she pulls you into the furnace, then slams the door shut. You think this is confusion. It is not. Freud saw it long before modern dating apps turned it into a spectacle. He called it the clash between id and superego. Her id screams for surrender, for danger, for raw intimacy. It does not care if it ruins her life. It does not care if it destroys everything. But her superego, the voice of culture and shame, condemns the hunger. It whispers, be pure, be untouchable, don't want what you want. So her mind fractures. This fracture becomes seduction, not planned, not always conscious, but mercilessly effective. As a child, she discovered that attention was survival. If she could captivate, she could endure. But total surrender, that was punished, that was dangerous. And so she learned the game: offer glimpses, but never everything. Now, as a woman, it looks like this: the linger of her gaze, the softness in her voice, the brush of her hand across your arm. She awakens your masculine hunger, and then vanishes. She wants to be desired, but not possessed. She wants to be seen, but not taken. This is Freud's reaction formation, when someone cloaks their true longing by performing the opposite. She may ache for closeness, but she hides behind distance. She may throb with desire, but she speaks of restraint, purity, and boundaries, because to admit the truth would shatter the illusion of control. You see it as hot and cold, but it is something darker. It is the war between her hunger and her fear. Her ego claws at balance. Flirt, but retreat. Invite, but resist. Give, but never surrender. You cannot win this game by chasing her shadow. If you pursue the body she dangles in front of you, she will play games with your soul. The only way out is to see the script and step outside of it. Because a woman can enslave the man who needs her, but she cannot break the man who is anchored in himself. And that terrifies her more than love ever could. You believe she is rare, unlike anyone else. You tell yourself she is different. But your obsession is not with her. It is with her absence. Freud would say, this isn't attraction, it's the reawakening of your oldest wound. When she turns cold, when she grows distant, when she withholds, your nervous system panics. It screams, don't lose her, prove yourself, earn it. But that hunger is not love, it is starvation. You don't just want her, you want to heal. You want to rewrite your past. But here is the uncomfortable truth. The more she withholds, the more you crave. Not because she is truly rare, but because your brain has been trained to equate absence with worth. This is displacement. You are not chasing her. You are chasing the ghost of your childhood pain. You are not addicted to her. You are addicted to the familiar ache of trying to matter. And she knows. Maybe not consciously, but she feels the power. The instant she retreats, your masculinity shakes. Your worth is no longer yours. It is hers to grant or deny. But no woman should hold that power. Until you break the link between scarcity and love, you will keep crawling back to women who starve you and convince you it's a feast. You will not rise by winning her validation. You will rise the moment you see the pattern and refuse to kneel to it. She mocks you. She calls you cold, controlling. She spits words meant to hurt, words that paint you as the villain. And yet, she does not leave. She circles, she watches, she returns. This is not confusion. Freud called it reaction formation, the mask that hides the forbidden truth. What she ridicules in you is exactly what her body aches for. What she condemns as toxic is the very gravity that pulls her. The contempt in her words is a disguise for the craving she cannot allow herself to feel. Her biology does not lie. She longs for strength, for stillness, for the unshakable frame that dominates her chaos. But she was never taught to love what she desires. She was taught to shame it. Maybe her father was too weak to protect her, or too oppressive to love her freely. Maybe society whispered that to want a powerful man is betrayal, of independence, of equality, of herself. So her superego builds a fortress. It whispers, he is dangerous, he is unsafe. It is easier to label you a monster than to admit her hunger. And every time you hold your frame, every time you refuse to bend, she goes hotter. She hates you for not breaking. But her hatred is laced with desire, because your stillness is the very dominance her chaos secretly worships. Most men fail here. They defend themselves. They plead. They argue. They bend beneath her judgment. They think they are correcting the image she projects, but in truth, they are submitting to it. The man who understands projection knows better. He does not argue with the insult. He listens to what her unconscious is screaming beneath the mask. Your presence makes me feel what I swore I would never feel again. And the correct answer is silence, not retreat, not chase, not debate, just silence. Because when a woman battles you for control, she secretly wants you to take. You do not negotiate. You do not explain. You do not fold. You hold. The woman who ignores you, who seduces and vanishes, who mirrors the coldness of your mother or the fury of your father. She feels real because she reawakens the boy inside you, the boy who whispers, if I can make her stay, I will finally be enough. But that was never her role. The deeper betrayal is not hers. It is yours. You betrayed yourself when you made her the cure for your emptiness. You betrayed yourself when you believed her chaos would heal your boyhood wounds. You weren't in love. You were hypnotized by scarcity, by pain dressed as beauty. And that is why it destroys you. Again and again. Because no woman can mother the man who refuses to father himself. The illusion was never her attention. The illusion was believing your worth depended on it. You cannot win this game by playing it. The only way out is to leave the stage entirely. She is not your enemy. She is your reflection. And your only task is to stop bleeding every time you see yourself in her chaos. Freud knew the path forward wasn't repression. It was sublimation, transforming raw hunger into creation. So when the urge to chase consumes you, do not obey it. Harness it. Turn it into strength, into purpose, into becoming. Because the man who cannot be manipulated is not the man who wins her. It is the man who does not need her. You do not need her to understand. You do not need her apology, her explanation, her closure. Because wholeness is the answer. And clarity is the revenge. Let her spin in her illusions. Let her drown in her contradictions. Let her run from the very fire she prayed for in secret. You are not here to be recognized by chaos. You are here to rise above it. Every man reaches the day he must vanish, not in bitterness, not in weakness, but in a wholeness so heavy it cannot be ignored. That wholeness is not absence, it is sovereignty. She was never yours. She was the mirror of your wound, the echo of your childhood, the ghost you kept mistaking for love. Now you no longer bleed for reflections. You don't punish her. You don't save her. You don't wait for her to grow. You walk away, not with noise, not with anger, but with a sacred stillness, the calm of a man who no longer needs to prove himself to ghosts. Because the greatest terror for a manipulative woman is not a man who resists her. It is a man who no longer reacts at all. The moment you refuse to flinch, the moment you withdraw your energy, the moment you no longer play her script, her power dissolves. Freud warned that what you do not make conscious will return as fate, and nowhere is this clearer than in love. For the feminine soul is not simply a woman. She is the vessel of something older, the carrier of archetypes that stretch back through centuries. You are not only meeting her, you are confronting the ancestral shadow behind her eyes, the hunger of generations, the silence of abandoned daughters, the rage of mothers. This is why her presence feels larger than life. And if you do not know yourself, you will be consumed by her. You will mistake her chaos for passion, her tests for intimacy, her storms for love. You will fall to your knees before her shadow, believing it to be salvation. But the shadow does not love. It devours. It binds you to the wound you never healed. And here lies the secret Freud whispered. The shadow cannot be destroyed. It can only be integrated, not by chasing her, not by breaking her, but by meeting your own darkness and refusing to run from it. The man who is terrified of his own shadow will always be ruled by hers. But the man who faces his demons, who enters his own abyss willingly, becomes ungovernable, because he no longer seeks her to complete him. He no longer needs her chaos to feel alive. He has walked into the underworld alone and returned whole. And that man cannot be manipulated, not by beauty, not by silence, not even by love, for he has learned the deepest truth. The feminine shadow does not crave a savior. It craves a mirror. And when it meets a man who is no longer fractured, who holds both his light and his darkness without apology. The shadow bows, not to weakness, not to sentiment, but to power. But when her power dissolves, yours begins. Because wholeness cannot be manipulated, it cannot be seduced, it cannot be broken. A man rooted in wholeness does not chase, he does not beg, he does not plead for recognition. He creates, he builds, he becomes. And in that becoming, the boy inside you finally rests. Because he no longer waits for her to stay. He no longer aches to be enough. He knows he is already whole. That is the true revenge. Not her tears, not her regret, but the unshakable peace of a man who no longer needs proof from anyone. Because the final test was never her chaos. It was your reflection in it. And the day you stop bleeding in her storm, you become untouchable. Wholeness is the answer. Clarity is the victory. And sovereignty is the crown no one can take. And when you reach that point, something ancient wakes inside you.